If I could call everyone back to the day, we're about 1 minute from the CRA meeting. Thank you. Okay, I'm just waiting for the rest of the, for the staff and our city manager's been called away for a phone call just for a moment, so we're delaying. Thank you for that, Rob. Appreciate it. This time I'd like to call to order the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency, known as the CRA. This board meeting is Tuesday, March 27th at 5 p.m. The first item is the consent agenda. What I will do is read each item on the consent agenda separately and then ask for a motion for approval and a second, and then if there's discussion on any singular item at that time, you're welcome to bring that up. Item number 2 is the approval of meeting minutes from December 12th, 2017. Item 3 is discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 1311 Virginia Avenue. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 1313 Virginia Avenue. Item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 1315 Virginia Avenue. And item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 713 Indiana Avenue. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions about any of these items from the commission? There appear to be none. Are there any questions or discussion from the public on the consent agenda? Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I'm here as a citizen, not representing as part of the advisory board. I just want to make notice on the consent agreement dealing with the residential incentive applications, okay? It was remarked a long time ago by the citizenry about this program that it would reach a cap. There was no cap at all with it, and there was no discussion as to probably putting a cap on it. But you'll notice item 3, item 4, item 5, they're all the same developer. It's a developer, and you're giving him an incentive program to deal with him to build a house. You're paying for him. As soon as he gets finished with the building of it, he sells it. That's no tax increase to the owner of the piece of property. They don't get any tax write-off. He gets the tax write-off and he's gone. So, and you will notice that in the last meeting of the CRA Advisory Committee, they are increasing the amount of money for this program. That was under discussion, and we didn't get a chance to finish it. But just want to point out that this was one of the fallbacks that would be going in the incentive program that the citizens noticed when it first came up. There's no cap on it. Each individual, it could be 1 to 20, 25, 30, it could be 50. developers coming in and doing this. And you see it there, 1, 2, 3. And that's my point of comment as a citizen.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments or questions?
Mayor,
One moment, Commissioner Russell.
yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding that, that only one applicant can apply 3 times in a year. So he does these 3s, but he's limited and can't do it again until another calendar year has started. So there is a limit on how many times. He can't come in here and do 50 lots in 1 year and get the fee for each lot. Am I not correct, Ben? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Can you tell me if items 3, 4, and 5, all on Virginia Avenue, will these homes be affected by the repositioning of Virginia Avenue once 390 is widened?
I don't know the answer to that question. Not even sure I understand the question, but Ben,
Okay, Tennessee is dead-ending at 14th Street once
Right.
390 is widened. There will no longer be a traffic light there. There'll be a stop sign on Tennessee. 14th Street will do a squiggle and come up to Virginia. Virginia is going to get a cul-de-sac, and there'll be a traffic light at 390 at Virginia. So I'm just wondering if these homes that we're getting them some incentive money are then going to be either taken away or whatever when this reconfiguration occurs.
Ben, would you like to address the question? Thank you.
The answer is no.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay. Are there any other questions from the public? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Aye. Commissioner Tender. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and the consent agenda stands approved. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 7 is discussion and possible action regarding the Storefront Assistance Program update. Is there a motion for approval?
Mayor, if I may.
I was just asking for a motion and a second before we discuss.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you have to vote, just,
Sure.
just
So
a
I'll make a
motion.
motion so we can have the discussion.
Thank you. Is there a motion for discussion and possible action?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion on the floor, so Commissioner Russell, go ahead.
I still have issues with the word dollar for dollar match. I mean, as I read the application, if I read where it says that, and even it says grants are on a dollar for dollar match, that makes me believe that if I spend $1, the city's going to give me $1. And it says, of course, it says up, but not to exceed 50% of the total cost of the project. But still, the dollar to dollar for me gives me the feeling that I'm going to get the money if I spend it.
Okay. Ben, would you like to address that at all or not? It's just if you'd like to. If you think you have something you could add or...
Well, I would just like to mention that at our last the board meeting in November, the CRA board had asked me to reach out to the city attorney to go over the language of this form. What you see here today is the recommended update from the city manager, from the city attorney. If there are specific sentences that the CRA board may not like, we can. A possible answer could be to get this application form approved with the certain changes that are being discussed today.
Did you want to? Sure.
And Mayor, just to clarify and just to kind of review the changes that Ben and I made, we really, the biggest change is we kind of encouraged everybody to make a pre-application. And so we didn't have the situation where someone went ahead and billed and thought that this was something that they should be entitled to, and then they find out that they're not. So there's a pre-application built in where there's a meeting with the CRA director to review if they qualify for the plan. and then that can come to the commission as kind of a pre-award to let them know that, yeah, we think there's going to be money, we're going to plan it, and the city can then budget for that. And then when it's done, it's verified by the CRA director and comes back for final approval. And the reason why there's a separate final approval is because, budgetary issues could have changed during that time frame. So the commission does retain the flexibility to deny something in the future. But at least if there's a pre-application, you can plan for it, and hopefully would avoid those problems. As far as the dollar for dollar, that's just a 50-50, 50 grant, and there's maximums up there. We can remove that language if you think that's still confusing.
I would like to just say that I think because of the fact that you have a maximum listed, that the dollar for dollar is pretty clear. I mean, you can't go over the maximum, and you have the flexibility to accept it or not accept it with the pre-application and the discussion. So I don't really see that. I don't see that there's a misunderstanding, but I'm certainly open to listen to more.
If I may, Mayor, all I'm saying is, as a citizen, if I was to do this application and I knew that I spent $100,000 to remodel something, from reading this application, I would expect this board to give me $25,000 because it says dollar for dollar match up to 50%, but the maximum is $25,000. If you take out the dollar for dollar, then there's no expectation, in my opinion. They're not going to expect to get that money. They understand that it's going to be subjective, because this board in the past has made subjective decisions on how much to give instead of what the paperwork recommends. But again, I'm one of five. It's just as a layman, to me, this implies that you're going to match them dollar for dollar.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have a similar feeling or a similar opinion with Commissioner Russell, or do you have a different opinion you'd like to share? Or?
I do. I kind of tend to agree with them because of the way it's worded.
Okay.
It does say that for every dollar the property owner puts in storefront improvements, the CRA will put in $1. But then it does say cannot exceed 50% of the total cost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, it's easy to, I just eliminated some words in that second paragraph. It could just say, grants are made, and then remove all the language from on a dollar for dollar match up to storefront improvements, and then the CRA will put in $1. Take all that out, and so the final language could be, grants are made for storefront improvements, but cannot exceed, and then that language.
And then I wanted to ask the city attorney too, what you said before, that they will fill out this application with the understanding that it's going to come before us to see if we have the funds available. Is that right? Is that stated anywhere, or do they think that when they fill this out, they might not get it because we might not have the funds?
It's, if you look about midway down through that third paragraph, it says costs for maintaining the building are qualified, and then it says owners desiring to obtain preliminary approval for a grant shall submit a preliminary application with the budget and project plans to CRA director for consideration by the CRA board. And so that's the language. There's also in the other portion, there's a timeline in there, or maybe that's there's a timeline that shows the preliminary grant process. It's not absolutely required that they submit preliminarily, but they take the risk that the commission will not either be out of money or not approve it. And so really it is, if the purpose is to incentivize them and for them to know what to expect, then this preliminary process should hopefully resolve all those issues, so you don't have the issue we had before. We had a builder who came in expecting something and then came up to the commission and realized, I might not be able to get this.
Would there be a possibility of maybe changing the words owners desiring to owners should obtain, or even owners must obtain? Could we?
You can change that to a shall. I mean, that's very simple.
Any comment or discussion from the board, or?
Mayor, if I may.
Or
The only thing I would add, Mayor, though, is that there's always a possibility that someone won't know about the grant, go forward, build it, and realize they could qualify for it, and then come to the commission and ask for money. And if it's a shall and they didn't go through that process, you all should turn them down if you want to have that flexibility.
Maybe a should?
What about this? What if you said owners desiring to obtain preliminary approval for a grant are encouraged to submit a preliminary application with a budget, blah, 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 blah.
I like that a
I
lot.
think that's good.
Without preliminary application, you risk you run the risk of being disproved if there's money not available.
Mhm.
I'm good. I'm sorry, Mary.
Go ahead. I think we're all leaning in the same direction of clarity.
If we can take out the dollar for dollar match like the city attorney says, yes, I'm good with the rest of it.
Okay.
So Rob, could you read your language with the dollar for dollar?
Sure. The clean language would be grants are made for storefront improvements, comma, but cannot exceed the lesser of 1 and then 2.
Okay.
So-
I have no issue with that. That's very clear.
It says the same thing. It just it removes some extra language. And then the other one was owners desiring to obtain approval for a grant are encouraged to submit a preliminary application.
Yeah, owners desiring to obtain preliminary approval for a grant are encouraged to submit a preliminary application with a budget and project plans, so forth.
So would the person who made the motion be amenable to amending that motion to change the language?
I would be more than happy to. I amend the motion to include the language that we just discussed.
And is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, so there's been a motion to amend the language to what we just said, or what the attorney just said, and there's been a second. Is there any further discussion from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This problem was given to the CRA Advisory Committee Board. It was brought to them. They had to make the decision as to arbitrate between a very expensive mistake that was in this storefront thing. We recommended that this be reviewed and be brought back to that committee for approval. It was not. What you're relying on here, and Mr. Russell is correct, this is a lot of gobbledygook in here that leads to confusion. Why can't you just make it simple? Why can't you just tell them you can submit for $25,000? You might not get it. Dancing around the subject causes confusion. That cost us a lot of money and cost us a lot of embarrassment in the community. I think what you should do is rewrite it, make it plain, and submit it back to the committee who brought this first to you. And let them take a look at it and make sure the common people understand, like Mr. Russell is trying to point out. It has to be plain. You
So
can't,
can I ask a question?
Sure.
sir.
Commissioner Barnes, go ahead.
Based upon the recommended changes, what's not clear about this?
it's not clear because the application states, as Mr. Russell said, $25,000, et cetera, period. It states that. It should say $25,000, inclusive of the architectural designs and everything like that, with a caveat that you can submit this plan, you might not get it.
Well, that caveat is in there.
I didn't see it there. I didn't see the change.
Mr. Walker, thank you for your comments. And Commissioner Barnes, did you still have further questions for
I'm
Mr.
good.
Walker?
I'm
Okay,
good.
thank you very much. Does anyone else on the board have any further comments or questions? Anyone else from the public have a comment or question? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
No.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Stands approved with 3-2, correct? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8. This is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the Lynn Haven CRA Annual Report Fiscal Year 2016-2017. Before I ask for a motion and for discussion and possible action, is there a staff report regarding the budget? Thank you.
This is a housekeeping item. Once a year, each CRA in the state of Florida has to draft an annual report, which has to be approved by the board. This report summarizes the activities, the project that I've focused on over the last couple of months for the fiscal year 2016 and 17. And it also gives an overview over the financials of the CRA. We started our fiscal year with a beginning balance of $627,735, received revenues in the amount of $303,962, and expended $381,840, which leaves us with a ending balance of $549,857, and that was at the end of the fiscal year.
That was the end of when?
The fiscal year.
Thank you.
So staff is requesting approval of this report as presented.
Okay. Is there a motion for possible action regarding the approval of the Lynn Haven CRA fiscal report for the year 2016-2017?
I move approval.
Second.
There's been a motion for approval and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board or questions?
Are copies of this available, or
They're
mean
like
black and
in the
white copies?
In the packet.
Oh. Oh, I see. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions from the board? Any questions regarding the budget from the public? There appear to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and I'd also like to add just a comment to thank Ben Jonke for all the work he's done this year, and a great job. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 9, the public commentary. This is a time, if you have any comments or questions about the CRA that you would like to discuss or address to the commission, you're welcome to do that at this time. Anyone? Okay, thank you. The CRA, then the board meeting is now adjourned, and we will resume at 6 o'clock p.m. with our regularly scheduled Lynn Haven City Commission meeting. Thank you so much for coming.